And we'll share my screen. We are happy that you guys are joining us. Okay. So welcome. Thank you for spending your lunch with us. I'm Erica Mann, one of the counselors at Worthington Kilbourne High School. Today's topic is about perfectionism. So when we kind of think about perfectionism, you want to know and look for the warning signs to know if your child is struggling with perfectionism. Perfectionism stems from low self-worth. It reflects an internal belief that you're not good enough, that you're not as smart or as funny or as good looking as everyone else. And this belief pushes many perfectionists to excel. But other perfectionists are almost paralyzed by it. They're unable to take action or make decisions out of fear that doing so will confirm their inferiority. But no matter what type of perfectionist you are, you don't think you're inherently worthy, so you constantly are trying to prove your worth. So when we talk about those signs that you want to look for within your child, one of the first ones is that all or nothing thinking, like there's no middle ground. So it's either you are going all out or they are not willing to try at all. Another thing that you want to look for is that your child sees their worth as being tied to their achievements or performance. And a lot of times, some of that is very normal. You want to study for the test to do well on the test because you care about your grade. That is normal. When it becomes a problem or something you want to be aware of is if your child studies and they get still what would be considered a good grade, maybe a low A instead of a high A, a 90% instead of 100%. And that derails their day, their week. They can't get out of that loop of thinking, I should have done more. I should have done better. If they struggle to tolerate mistakes in their self and in others, we all make mistakes. We're human. That's a part of getting through life, is making our mistakes and learning from them. If your child is stuck in a mistake that they've made, that could be an indication that they are struggling with perfectionism. They view anything less than perfect as failure, another indication. A lot of times when you are working with or doing a little bit of research about perfectionism, people pleasing is a top one. If you find somebody who is always wanting to please everybody, that could be an indication and a warning sign that there might be something more going on. People pleasing is hard because a lot of us want to please other people and we want to do well, but we can't lose track of our own beliefs and values in pleasing other people. Students may procrastinate or struggle to initiate a task if it can't be done perfectly. Sometimes it's better to avoid and to not start the task at all than to start and fail. Tend not to ask for help because they don't want to show their weakness or their vulnerability. If students are really struggling with perfectionism, this could speak to them. If they're sitting in class and they're afraid to ask a question or to reach out for help, it could be because they don't want to show that sign of weakness. Some additional things to look for is that fear of failure, and that can kind of relay into procrastination. Again, it's easier to avoid or to put something off because you're scared of that failure. Again, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and there really is benefit to trying something, even if it fails, and then trying again to kind of rework through that. Students who have a higher likelihood of being a perfectionism focus solely on the results and not the steps that it takes to achieve something. They're highly critical of themselves, and they rarely, if ever, celebrate the success. So if they do score perfect on a test, they're not celebrating that. They're still focusing on, well, I should have explained this more, or I could have done this. And they're unrealistic standards and expectations that they have on themselves.
So you might be wondering, is this even bad? Like, is it really a bad thing if somebody is a perfectionist? And the reality is that with pretty much everything in our world, it's it's all about moderation. There's not something that's typically all good or all bad. It's just in the level of impact and the degree that that's having on somebody's life and on their view of themselves. Like Mrs. Mann was kind of describing, your perfectionist piece, if you can keep it under control, can lead to some good things, but it can also become dangerous when it spins out of control. And so, if you look at this next page here, Mrs. Mann, will you? Thank you. There are pros and cons to it. There are things that are a plus when you are a perfectionist. So you're going to have more of the attention to detail. You might do great in school. You could be a person who is willing to work really long hours and produce some great accomplishments because of the dedication and work and detail that you're able to put into what you're doing. And so those can be good things with perfectionism. But again, at the heart of it, it's about what other people are thinking of you versus what you're thinking of you. And so that's where those cons come in. And there are a lot. Even though the list looks pretty close, when you actually look at what the types of things are on the cons list, the people who tend to be striving for that perfect all the time tend to be unhappier. And it can create some mental health problems and some mental health challenges for them, because that idea that they have to be perfect in order to accomplish something or to be good enough, as Mrs. Mann was saying, they're always going to fail at that because none of us are perfect. It doesn't mean we're not valued and worthy and important and that we matter. And so that's where that thinking can get messed up in our minds if we think we have to be perfect in order to be good enough. But perfectionism can also create a lot of pressure, that desire to have the 100% versus the 90%, even though the GPA would look the same either way. Perfectionists tend to beat themselves up a lot. They tend to maybe even get very obsessed with one little detail and not able to let that go. Time management can be a struggle because they want to spend more time and making this one thing perfect instead of saying, okay, I'm at a good enough spot. I need to let this go and keep moving. And again, those little issues can impact your mood. So you might have done this wonderful thing, a great project in school, and had one little thing not go exactly as you wanted it to. And instead of being proud of the project that you had put together and that you had worked so hard on, you end up thinking it was a failure because of that one problem and getting really stuck in that.
Hi. So perfectionism can be a challenge for both children and their parents. So as we start talking about the strategies in working through this with your children, we just want to encourage you to be supportive and understanding and empowering to your children, but also to yourself. So we're going to give you some strategies that you can implement in your interactions with your children to support them in this journey towards that healthier attitude. First, becoming aware of a perfectionist mindset. So exploring without judgment the various perfectionistic and those thought patterns that they are demonstrating. Can you guys hear me? Because it just said I'm unstable. We're good. Okay. So secondly, identifying how perfectionism shows up in your child. So reflecting on specific instances with them about their behaviors where it becomes evident. So where does that perfectionism become evident? And having those conversations and dialogues with them and reflecting on that. And then identifying those unique ways that it manifests differently in them than your other children or other peers. Striving for excellence, not perfection. So we're advocating with them and with you for a shift in their perspective, highlighting the distinction between striving for excellence and trying to pursue an unattainable perfection. As Ms. Abbott said, none of us are perfect. So striving for that is unattainable. So helping them distinguish between striving for excellence. And then illustrating how embracing a mindset focused on growth and improvement can alleviate that pressure and then foster that resilience as they're working through those challenges and striving for that excellence. And then developing a growth mindset introducing that concept of a growth mindset is a powerful tool for combating that perfectionism, again, because they're going to be working towards something that's attainable and not unattainable, and promoting a culture of learning and resiliency at home where we get to view mistakes as learning opportunities, not failure.
So once again, I think what we're hearing over and over again as part of our presentation is just that no one is perfect, and reminding our students of that in whatever situation we can is what they need to hear from their parents and the adults that are in their life. I think having those reality check situations to remember that, to go back on that is very, very important. I think Mrs. Lord said it really nicely as well. Just that idea of nobody's perfect and we need to fix our mindset and change that to not be so fixed is very, very important. And reflecting on, we can make mistakes, and then how do we best learn from those mistakes? So when your child comes home and they're demonstrating how disappointed they are with a 90% we've been using, we need to really reflect and engage in dialogue on that situation so that they can grow from it and not fixate on it. Also, the idea of focusing on and enjoying and embracing challenges. I think so often students worry, well, I don't want to take this harder class because I'm not going to be able to attain a certain score or a certain grade. Well, what's important for us as the adults in their life is to talk about pros and cons of trying it. What is the worst case scenario if you do get a B in that class? Oftentimes here at that high school level, I love to see a perfectionist student receive that B so that we can dialogue about it, so that they can understand that B actually means something on paper that is showing something. I challenged myself. I was willing to commit to a challenge. And I think what a student can overcome with that first B is actually much more important than achieving all A's. And we need to remember that as families. What are the ways that parents can help? We've listed some of those for you, and you guys know your children the best. You're able to really help them through what they're going through, but these are just some things that we feel could be beneficial. So praise and celebrate the effort, not just the accomplishments. You know, I noticed last night that you were in your room for over 2 hours. Oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you for taking that time, and not even then maybe commenting on the score that you see on Infinite Campus, but more of the effort that you know they put in on a certain night studying. Watch for those struggles with perfectionism and help identify it with your son or daughter so it gives them perspective. So when you see or hear this, just that reminder again of nobody's perfect. That's not what you want from them. What you're wanting is growth. What you're wanting is learning. We don't want to see perfection. I'm so proud of you for trying. That's kind of what the message is. First, I'm so happy that you got an A. Then I do think this is where we as professionals in education notice that sometimes this perfectionism becomes too great of a struggle. There are students that can be so fixated on certain things that we need to help them out of it. And we need to seek outside supports for that so that we can help break that pattern.
So here we just have a link. I don't know if anyone's seen Meet the Robinsons, but it's a nice reminder and a really great way to combat some of those beliefs related to perfectionism. So we can roll the tape. Are we able to hear the volume?
Mrs. Mann, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Mrs. Mann, I think, yeah.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear the volume?
Are you ready?
I think I just heard it.
Okay, that should do it. Yeah. I can let her rip this. Wait, Uncle Joe can't hold on much. Buddy, ready? Go, Carl. Oh no. Exceptional. Standing. From failing, you learn. From success, not so much.
I gave up every time I failed. I never would have made the meatball cannon.
I never would have made my fireproof pants. Still working out the kinks. Like my husband always says.
Okay, so I know volume was kind of in and out, but hopefully getting the message of they're celebrating failure. This is how we learn. This is how we move forward. If no one ever failed, we wouldn't be able to learn, develop, grow. And at the end of the day, that's what school's about. That's what relationships are about. We are supposed to fail. And so when we can continue to like celebrate those failures and celebrate the learning from those failures, that's when we can combat some of that like perfectionistic viewpoints. So at this time, we would love to answer any questions. We just ask that you can type them in the chat, and then I am happy to read that and answer your questions.
And while we wait for you to do that, I was reminded of it. Oh, there we go. Molly to the rescue, Mrs. Lord to the rescue. She put the link for the clip. It's a really cute clip when you can hear the whole thing of the audio.
Sorry, could you guys not hear it or see it?
It was like in and out a little bit, but
Oh no, I had even turned my volume up all the way. Sorry, guys.
I think Zoom's filters out distracting noise. So like when all the chaos is happening in the video clip, it makes it silent because it thinks it's in your room.
Okay, sorry about that.
And I was, as you're working on thinking about any questions that you have, I was thinking about a story that I just recently heard about a little girl who spilled her milk and like looked at her parent so fearful about what the reaction would be. And, the mom had the impression, that the gut instinct reaction to be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not paying attention? And instead, in that situation, the mom said, I love you more than spilled milk. And that child's reaction was huge of like, oh, this is okay. And I can't say that we're always going to know to say, I love you more than spilled milk, but it is that reminder that we're going to mess up at times. We're still not going to be perfect. And so trying to keep that reasonableness within ourselves and within our kids is going to be a really powerful place to be. We're super good at wait time. So if anyone has any questions, we are more than happy to answer them.
Okay, well, then this concludes our presentation. We really appreciate you guys being here. If you think of a question, reach out to your counselor or myself, or your child's counselor, I should say. And happy Friday. This is our last Lunch and Learn for the year, but we'll be back next year.
Have a great Friday and a great weekend, everyone.